is your Classic Metal Show right here on theclassicmetalshow.com. That, of course, Gus G. New track from Gus G. The tune is called Don't Tread on Me. New album is called Fearless, and it kicks ass, so you need to check it out. And on the line right now is the guitarist and the main guy of Gus G, I guess, and of Firewind, and you might remember him from another little band he was in with a vocalist named Ozzy. But right now he's just solo for the minute, I guess. It is Gus G. Gus, how are you, man?
Wow, what an intro. Thank you. Hey, I'm fine. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Good, man. Well, Gus, you are... If people just look at your output, you're a busy guy because of all the different things that you've done. But I have to guess that you take a little more time than people probably think, working on new material, because and I'll just make the comparison between Firewind and between your solo stuff, the stuff has such a different flavor to it between the two acts that it's clear that it's not just things you're throwing together. Is that fair?
Yeah, I'm actually happy to hear that, that you can really tell that it's two different projects. I mean, that's the whole point of having two different projects in that sense, or like a band or a solo career, so to speak of. They need to be different, they need to sound, obviously there are similarities because I'm playing guitar in both of them, but sure. Yeah, what's the point in doing something else that sounds exactly like Firewind, right?
Right. No doubt, man. Well, dude, listening to Fearless, it's even for your solo work, I would say it is somewhat of a directional change, mainly because, this is what I read, so you can tell me if what I read was just publicist nonsense or if it's real, but this feels like it is much more of a band thing. It's not you going and finding friends that want to sing on different songs. It seems like you really developed a band concept with this one.
No, correct. It was, and honestly, we were thinking of calling it, to give it a band name, and we changed it at the last minute only because of the reason that I had already invested so much time and money and effort into building the solo band the last few years, mm-hmm. With the first two records, and toured a lot. So we thought, well, it usually takes 3 or 4 albums until people really start to, get wind of what's happening. Oh, so he's doing that now. It's not something that happens overnight. So just the whole awareness thing. So, I mean, it took a while, and we had already done a lot of the groundwork on the solo project, so to speak of. So we thought, well, we should continue like that, But yeah, it is a different direction this time. It's a bit more band based, if you like.
Sure.
In reality, what it is, it's me and Dennis Ward co-writing songs, whereas the first 2 records were a little bit more experimental. I was writing a bunch of different ideas, and then I would have different co-writers to finish up those songs with me. Therefore, the album sounded, they were more diverse in the sense that, I tried out different things. Like there would be like some acoustic stuff or some ballad stuff, and then there would be some, heavy metal stuff, or mm-hmm. then you would have like the glam rock song or like an industrial metal type of song. So I would just try out different things, really just throwing stuff out there and just experimenting, having a good time. Whereas this time, yeah, it's a little bit more, I would say cohesiveness is the key word here.
Sure. Now you've obviously worked with Dennis Ward before, in a production standpoint, because I believe he did what, produce or mix your Firewind stuff.
Actually it was more or less the same thing on the last Firewind record, Immortals, that came out last year. We co-wrote the stuff together. So basically I would do the music and arrangements, and he would come up with lyrics and vocal melodies, mm-hmm. and he engineered it and mastered it. So yeah, he played a big part in that record, and basically just continued doing the same thing with the songs that were destined to be in my solo record. Sure. That's what this was. Yeah.
Did it feel, was there a different feel though this time, since it came in with the goal versus I think more, and I'm guessing here more with Firewind, he was more helping out a project that you already knew how to create.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Firewind is that we already had a sound and style, so he was going along those lines. And the thing with that record, with Immortals, it was an attempt to make our first concept album, and we really needed some outside help because none of us knew how to do that. So
Sure.
and because he was dealing a lot with ancient Greek history and stuff. So it's kind of funny. Most of us are Greeks in the band, and we couldn't write about our own history. We went to an American guy.
Right.
but Dennis is a really good with when it comes to really putting pen to paper and giving him a direction. And I would throw some lines at him, and then from there on he just went and presented me with a bunch of ideas. Now this time, what he did was, usually I send the music and he sends me back the demos with him singing. And we didn't really know who was going to sing on this record.
Sure.
I didn't know if we were going to have guests again and whatnot. And in the end, it just sort of made sense. Like he said, "Hey man, listen," I said, it already sounds great when you're singing. You got a great voice, and you wrote those songs with me. So, and then he suggested, how about we try this as a power trio, and I play bass and sing. And according to Dennis's words, that was one of his childhood dreams, to be in a power trio setup.
Okay.
And I said to him, "It works for me, man. If you're willing to tour this,
Sure. No
So
doubt.
we gave it a try, and it's something different. It's also, like I said, it's not only stylistically different, but also when you see this on stage, it's different from what Firewind is doing.
Sure. Definitely. Now for you, the way that you've always written, and you've always kind of been the lead guy with everything that you did, with the exception of the Ozzy thing. But with that, I'm always curious, especially somebody that's musical like you, how difficult is it for you to find vocalists that meet what you're trying to do? I have to imagine that you write the music and you record it, and then you find the vocalist. You don't write for a vocalist. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. I mean, sometimes I might have a specific type of singing and in mind, and I'll just approach several people. And I've been lucky in that sense that I've gotten to work with some of the best people in the business, really.
Sure.
So yeah, I just I have a thing for. I like good singers that have a certain technical ability, but they also have that certain feel. And so yeah, I don't know. It's just and sometimes I've also experimented, like with the first two solo records. I just tried things out. I worked with this band called Devour the Day, and they're like a active rock kind of band.
Okay.
Which is kind of far away from the power metal stuff that I do, if you like. And
sure.
We did a song called "I'm the Fire," which is one of my I would say most known songs from my solo catalog.
Okay.
And that worked out really well. So that was like a different type of collaboration that worked out really well. We did a song called "I'm the Fire," and then so it became one of the singles. So I try out things from time to time. It doesn't have to be a specific kind of singer,
Right, certainly, man. Well, Gus, obviously the other change, with this record is that, in addition to Dennis, you also had Will Hunt, from most known for Black Label Society and whatnot, jump into the band. How did he end up in the band?
Well, he was. I met him last year. We were playing in Frankfurt. I was touring with Steve Stevens. I was opening up his shows in Europe, and
sure.
He was at the Frankfurt Music Messe, which is like the European kind of NAMM convention type of thing. And that happens in Frankfurt in April. And we met there last April. He was doing some clinics, and we did a show there. And we were staying at the same hotel, so we just met at the hotel bar that night and basically just hung out, had a couple of beers, and then just shared tour stories, basically.
Okay.
And I mean, he's a hell of a drummer. He's one of the best, and I always loved his playing. And yeah, we just started talking, and then exchanged contacts, and then I don't know. I after walking away from that, I took that as a good sign. As I said, well, maybe Will would be interested in playing on this album. So I reached out and asked him, and it seemed that the timing worked out, and we flew him over to Germany a few months later, and he laid down the drum tracks on this album.
No doubt. Now, how is it? You've obviously worked with other drummers before, and as well, and how was it working with Will as far as finding that groove for the bottom end? Did it just kind of formulate right away?
Yeah. I mean, he was when I heard him play. I mean, when I hear him play, I knew like he was exactly that type of drummer that this record needed. So I knew what I was getting. But then, when he came to the studio, he was really well prepared. He knew what he was doing, and he came in and he really lifted the songs. He really elevated them with his playing. He has that swing, that big rock sound. He has he produces this big tone when he plays, so
Sure.
and I love that about him, and he can also play the technical stuff too, and really easygoing guy, man, easy to work with, really funny guy actually.
Nice.
So we clicked as people and as musicians. Yeah,
Sure.
It's great. It really makes a difference having musicians of that caliber playing on your records.
No question, man. Well, Gus, I'm going to go backwards in history a little bit just because I'm curious now that there's been a little time. At the time that you joined Ozzy's band, it seemed like Firewind was right there on the verge of really jumping to that top level. And then after the Ozzy, and I'm certainly not shitting on your time in Ozzy at all, but it just seems like that stopped the momentum, of Firewind, to where Firewind almost became considered your side work, I guess, because Ozzy's so famous, I guess, or so big. When you look back at it, now that you've had, years have gone by since, do you wish maybe you would have stayed the course and just stayed with Firewind? And that's not to say that anything with the Ozzy thing is bad, but just more, did it change your career path, I guess is what I'm asking.
That you're right in the sense that Firewind did take the back seat, obviously, when I joined Ozzy's band. I mean, I would have never changed that decision for anything in the world.
Sure.
I think it was the right thing to do, and that opened up so many doors that I probably would have never ever happened with just sticking with Firewind, and I'm talking, I mean, that's my own baby, and of course, it helped me in a lot of ways, I mean, not only money wise,
Yeah, well, sure.
So, with Ozzy, like I said, I got a lot more opportunities. I think that the problem with Firewind was that it wasn't really only the fact that we took the back seat because I was so busy with Ozzy. It was also the fact that we had, actually problems with the lineups, and we couldn't really keep a singer. And when we had that momentum, our singer quit back in 2013.
Right.
And maybe we made a couple of records that didn't really resonate with our fan base much. And I don't know. I think partly it's because it's our own fault why this band did not become any bigger when it should have. So I would definitely not put that on me joining Ozzy or anything. If nothing else, I think it gave the band a bigger boost in the sense that it made the brand more recognizable on an international level.
Sure.
So I think that was a lot of our own mistakes, which we're kind of trying to catch up on. I mean, I think we made the right record, if you like, with Immortals. It was the right comeback record. So it seems that there's some momentum going on again. So
right.
I definitely do not plan on having 5 years break in between the next album,
Very good. Well, and to be fair, Gus, I know a million guitarists, and I think every single one of them would have joined too. I don't think it's you making this crazy decision to join Ozzy. I mean, if there's nothing else that comes out of being in Ozzy's band, it's that every guitarist is regarded as, the highest level of guitarist, just from playing with Ozzy.
Oh yeah. I mean, the status that it gives you, and that follows you for the rest of your career, really.
Sure.
I mean, and then after at some point, I mean, that's the thing. Ozzy gives you this big platform, and then it really is up to you what you're gonna do with that. You can choose to stay home and do nothing about it, or you can keep working and just really keep being out there. And I think if you want to stay out there and keep busy, and then want to be creative, then like I said, a gig like that really opens up doors that you could have never imagined. So I'm really grateful, and I really think it was the right thing to do, of course.
No doubt, man. Well, Gus, somebody that you mentioned a couple minutes ago, and I watched a few YouTube videos of it, and I honestly wasn't aware that you did this tour, but Talk a little bit about touring with Steve Stevens, man. It just seemed from, the videos that I've seen online really looked like you and him connected, and looked like you guys were just having a lot of fun on tour.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Well, basically he did, I think that was maybe his first solo tour he ever did, or at least in Europe. I'm not sure, but I think sometime last year, I got a call from the agent, and they asked me if I wanted to go out because they were looking for somebody to do like an acoustic set to open up his show. And sometimes I do these acoustic sets. So I'm not, it's not my forte. I'm mainly an electric player, but
sure.
So I jumped at the opportunity. I thought it was great, and it was just me and a buddy of mine, James Paul Luna, who's a great singer, and we went out there and played like an acoustic set, and then Steve went out with his band and he played a lot of his stuff. And then in the end, what happened was I would go up on stage and we would jam some Hendrix and Zeppelin and stuff like that and just have a lot of fun.
Sure.
And it was really, really a lot of fun couple of weeks in Europe, and we became good friends after that. That's what it was.
No doubt. When you do that and you go out with, and not necessarily Steve, but I mean he's a good example. Do you watch other guitar players and try and pick up a little of this or that? I mean, you obviously can play with anybody, but that being said, Steve obviously has his own sound as well. Do you watch that as a player and say, man, maybe I could add this to what I do?
Oh, absolutely. I steal stuff from all those guys all the time. I feel inspired when I see players like that, man. It's like, and I'm gonna be part of a great guitar package coming up this fall. I'm going out with Vinnie Moore and Richie Kotzen in the States, and I mean, speaking of great players, those guys. I need to sit down and practice a lot this summer before I head over to the States to do this tour because, I mean, these guys are insanely good. So,
sure.
I mean, it's really inspiring and intimidating at the same time, if you know what I mean, being on stage or opening up the shows for those guys. But I like those things when that stuff happens because these guys are all my heroes. I grew up listening to all those guys.
Sure.
And I mean, I took a lot from all those guys. I learned a lot of their licks and the records and stuff like that. So yeah, and even now, so even more so now, like when I have a chance to go out on tour with people like Steve or Vinny or whoever, it's I'll see if I can sit down sometimes backstage and be like, hey man, how do you do this or that?
Sure.
And just bust their balls about
right.
showing me their licks so I can steal them.
No doubt, man. How impressive is it to watch somebody like Kotzen that also can sing on that highest level, man? That's just kind of amazing to me.
Yeah. We cannot all do what Richie does, right? I mean, he's one of those few guys that has that amazing voice, and he's just shreds like nobody's business. So, yeah. I mean, the only other guy that I can think who had a really good voice and could write his own songs like that was really Gary Moore,
Sure, yeah.
I mean, most of the virtuoso or shredder guitar players, they don't come with a great voice.
Right.
Yeah. That's why I chose not to sing. I'm like, well, I should focus on my strengths here, which is, I guess, writing a couple of riffs and playing guitar, and maybe it's best to just play with great singers instead.
Sure. Definitely, man. Well, Gus, obviously you have the new record Fearless. What are you gonna do with it, I guess is the question. You getting ready to tour it or...
Yeah. I mean, that's I'm only doing a couple of festivals in Europe this summer, basically taking it easy, but then in September we're doing this tour in the States with Vinnie Moore and Richie, and then I'm gonna come back in Europe in the fall and do a headline tour in the UK and Europe, which is probably going to keep me busy until right before Christmas, I would say. And then we're looking into some more gigs in 2019. So I don't know how long this tour cycle is going to keep, depending on what comes up.
Right.
And then, when that winds down, then I guess we're going to go back into writing another Firewind record.
Excellent, man. Sounds great. It all sounds good, man. And as a fan, I can't wait for more Firewind. That's definitely one of my favorite power metal bands. So
cool. Thank you.
But for now, I'll just have to settle for Fearless, which is quite the rockin' record as well, man. Just cool. Real quick, talk a little bit about, and I really just have one more question on this record. what is it when you're putting together songs? Because you have vocal songs on this one, and then you have a few instrumental songs. What is it? What is it that you hear that tells you to add vocals versus to let the guitar kind of be the vocalist?
I have no idea, man. Usually the instrumentals usually take form. They're basically failed attempts at becoming vocal songs.
Okay.
Somehow, I don't know. Like for example, the title track "Fearless," I had this opening riff, and I realized at some point that, hey, this is a really cool sequence and it's really cool riff, but then I soon realized that maybe it's a little bit too busy of a guitar piece to just put vocals over this stuff, and I said, let me give it a shot at just adding some more stuff on top of this, and then it ended becoming this thing with all these changes and all these crazy guitar parts one after another, and then somehow it all worked out in the end. And then there's this other instrumental track called "Thrill of the Chase." Now that one, from the get-go, it was destined to be an instrumental. I wanted to just create this kind of 80s sounding. Remember the Shrapnel record scene with all those guitar players? So I wanted to basically make a record that takes you back to that time, and a song. I mean, so that's what the aim was with that track.
Excellent, man. Well, the record is great. It is called Fearless. It's Gus G. And Gus, as a tradition on the show, we always wrap the interviews up with the artist picking a track from the record, telling us a quick story about it. So what would you like us to wrap the interview up with?
Which track?
Whichever one you want to, other than Don't Tread on Me, which we already played.
Okay, you already played. Good question. I don't know. Maybe we can play Letting Go, which is the opening track of the record, and I think it was the first single as well. And yeah, I think it's a kick-ass metal track. It's actually one of the first couple of songs that we wrote together with Dennis. Okay. And it has a little bit more of a modern metal vibe to it. And yeah, I don't know. Check it out.
All right. Well, let's do it right now. This is Letting Go. It's brand new Gus G right here on your Classic Metal Show.